Cern Basher, it's always lovely to have you come on and regale us. I've used that word before with you.
You have. I think you need to come up with some other words, Randy.
I'll get my thesaurus out before next week.
There you go. You can probably reach behind you there and grab one off your shelf.
It's possible. Or I could just ask Rock.
That's even better.
You really have to start getting used to doing that. Do you have I know that you're a pretty active, in doing research and whatnot. Have you been able to get in the habit of asking Siri or, just saying it out loud? Every once in a while, I'm trying to get a number. I might ask Siri, what's 10,000 times a million or something, just so I get the powers of 10 right. But have you gotten in that habit at all?
Yes, I find ChatGPT to be very helpful.
Okay.
Not Siri. Siri doesn't talk to me. Siri and I don't have a very good relationship, but Grok is increasingly helpful as well,
Okay. All right.
particularly on current events and finding information about current things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I use it mostly as well.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So what do you got rocking and rolling for us today?
Well, I've got a kind of a potpourri of a few things today.
Potpourri. See, you got your thesaurus out.
That's right. And we're gonna finish on a Grok item today.
Okay.
Excuse me. So let's start with something that's probably on a few people's minds. Any guesses what that might be, Randy?
Oh, well, there was a stock thing today going up and up and up, or there's robotaxi that's theoretically creating all this stock activity. You know,
That would be the wrong answer.
wrong answer twice. Oh, Bitcoin. Yeah, I should have thought of that. I think that was the third piece of housekeeping in the green room that I was going to ask you about, sir, because most of us are just happy with our big gains this week in Tesla, but you've had kind of a double good week.
Yeah, I'm interested in all kinds of things. Tesla certainly is a very important one, but there are some other things too that interest me. And one that caught my eye, a few years ago was Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And since then, I have been studying it and I'm still learning about it. It's been quite a journey. And like this man in the photo here, he's got his hands on a Bitcoin.
He's a knight of old.
Yeah, and I have my hands on a Bitcoin as well, Randy.
Oh, look at you. I see.
So these things exist. This is a real Bitcoin,
That
apparently.
is a real thing.
Real thing. So yeah, I've been told to hang on to this.
It's worth $100,000, that coin.
Something like that. Yeah.
Crazy.
So speaking of which, so last night, Bitcoin did cross 100,000 and I updated my table
Ah,
and I posted it on X. And then about 2 minutes later, I posted this update,
because
102. And then I prepared the one for 104 and it never quite came. So I went to sleep.
I saw it at 104.
Did it? Okay. Well, I missed my opportunity.
I think it was probably, like very late for you, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. But you've got to be satisfied with a 34 million X return and something
34 million. Yeah, X. Yeah.
since
Yeah.
inception. Yeah.
What, so, 1,000 bought a pizza or something like that.
Well, you're incredible, Randy, because that's my next slide.
I see.
10,000 bought
Ah,
two pizzas in 2010.
right.
It cost $40 back then, but now that 10,000 Bitcoin would be worth $1 billion. It's the most expensive pizza ever bought in history.
Yeah.
Amazing. Isn't that amazing?
It's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I bet he wish he just bought one pizza instead of two because then he would have 500 million.
So I think I've told you before, maybe not, that I had a friend years ago. I'm talking about a good 10 years, maybe 12 years ago, say, "Hey, Randy, what about this Bitcoin thing? I'm thinking about buying some." And I said, "Man, it seems like a Ponzi scheme to me." And I never wanted to ask him since whether he
Yeah.
kept his investment all these years. Yeah.
You'd be afraid to. He's probably on his super yacht now. So it's been an interesting journey with Bitcoin. This is kind of a nice one to look at. This is a chart of the drawdowns.
Yeah.
And this just shows how much Bitcoin goes down after it's hit a new high,
Wow.
right? So there's been, at least four periods where it's dropped 70% or more,
Wow.
right? And you look at this and you say, "Oh, this is crazy. Why would anybody want to invest in anything like this?" Right? And the answer is this chart.
Hmm.
is that even though it's had massive, massive downside volatility, it's continued to go up over time.
Right.
And not by a small amount, as we saw in those previous tables, by a lot.
You would have some similarities to some other thing that you invest in called Tesla, for instance.
Yeah, Tesla's not quite this volatile,
Yeah.
although it's had its moments.
Yes.
But yes, yeah, that's right. So this is interesting, and I think that, a lot of people are confused about what's going on here, and unfortunately, the chairman of the Federal Reserve seems to be confused, or at least intentionally trying to confuse people.
I see.
And he said yesterday that Bitcoin is a competitor to gold, not the US dollar.
Ah.
And he called Bitcoin a speculative asset. Now, I asked here, when does the US dollar become a speculative asset? And the response from Fiat's last stand was 1971, when the US dollar went off the gold standard.
Right, right, right.
I thought that was a pretty good response.
A good response. It's because
But
I read the first three chapters, you know.
yeah, what do you think so far?
So far it's interesting, but I mean, I did know a lot about money, the history of
Yep.
money. I haven't learned a tremendous amount, but I've been reminded about some stuff. So it's been good so far.
Yep. It's a journey. There's a lot of groundwork, a lot of foundation work to lay and then to go from there. And the problem with books like that is they assume that people know nothing about any of that stuff. So you end up reading a lot about things you might already know about. Um, so here's a comment here. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says Bitcoin doesn't compete with the US dollar, it competes with gold.
Mhm.
And that's actually legitimizing Bitcoin in its own way,
Yeah.
right? But this was from 𝐄𝐦𝐚𝐢𝐥, and they said he's right. Unlike the dollar, Bitcoin and gold haven't spent the last century losing 96% of their value. All right.
Yeah.
And here's that chart a little bit bigger.
Right.
Um, back in 1913, a dollar would buy 30 Hershey's chocolate bars.
30.
30.
I can
In
remember.
1933, a dollar would buy 10 bottles of beer.
Yeah, I can remember in the 50s that Hershey's chocolate bar was a nickel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
20 bottles of Coca-Cola in 1944.
yeah, totally.
1971, 17 oranges for a dollar.
17. Okay.
Now it's probably $3 for one orange.
Right. Not quite. Nah. Nah.
Well, in Florida, you'd be surprised. The
Oh,
place where they grow them, although you claim that where you are in California is the orange capital of the country.
well, it was the originator. We
Yeah.
have the tree. We actually the actual tree is protected here. I mean, a single tree where
Single
it
tree. Wow.
sprung from. Yes.
Interesting. Yep. So even in 2020, you could get a McDonald's coffee for a dollar. I'm not sure what it costs now. I don't drink coffee, but certainly not like Starbucks.
Yeah. No way. But I don't think it was then either.
No, true. So it's interesting. They created the Federal Reserve in 1913. Roosevelt criminalizes the possession of gold in the 1930s.
Mhm.
Um, the Bretton Woods Agreement established the gold standard, and the US dollar was the world's reserve currency in mid 40s, I guess it was. And then the US went off a gold standard in 1971.
Right.
And you can see that the dollar was depreciating before that,
Right.
but it's continued to depreciate.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's, is what it is. And so the question now is, where does Bitcoin go from here?
Right.
And so this is actually kind of interesting from an analyst that apparently a decade ago suggested that Bitcoin could reach 100,000.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Because
And now he's saying that there's a 2% chance that Bitcoin could become all of money for every currency, absorb every currency,
okay.
in which case he estimates that it would be worth about 5 million per Bitcoin at that point.
You want to hold on to the one on your desk there.
I do. I would. Yeah. That's right. I don't have the special blue one there, but I do have a gold one.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, so that's interesting. And, that's who knows. But there clearly is something happening here beyond, oh, it's a speculative asset. It's now worth $2 trillion.
Right.
Um, is there any company in the stock market that's worth 2 trillion where people say that's a speculative investment?
Yeah. Well, okay, no. Well, yes. I mean, NVIDIA, which is, of course, the hot tip of 2024. A lot of people are like, well, it can't continue to do this. So yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's always some speculation, even in in terms
Oh,
of Apple and other companies like that that are well established. There's always future projections about things.
right. I remember Sears was a thing once.
Yeah, yeah, and Sears was in a painful, long, slow decline. Um, yeah, for many decades. But anyway, it's interesting. I found it interesting that Chairman Powell would just
Right.
dismiss Bitcoin in that way.
Right.
I think he will live to regret those words.
I sus
But
but I suspect, CERN, that there's also, um, at least potentially, you have different personalities, as well as people with different histories and different educations that could look at Bitcoin and see a storehouse of value.
yes.
You have somebody else that would look at it and see a hedge,
Hmm.
see somebody else that look at it and see a medium of exchange.
Potentially, yep.
And then
Yep.
you have some egghead like you who thinks it's some kind of security device. I don't know. Anything's possible, sir.
That's right. And by the way, it wasn't me that came up with that egghead idea. But thank you for commenting on the shape of my head. It is rather egg-like. Um, it's interesting. So when you look at Bitcoin in terms of its underlying technology, what really is it? Well, it's not a coin, right? It's software. So there's nothing tangible and real like this about it at all. Um, in reality, it's just a technology protocol,
Right,
much like we had TCP/IP for the internet and SMTP for email and all these other protocols that allow things to work.
right.
You could argue that the English language is a protocol,
Mhm.
right? And things like that. Mathematics is a protocol. So Bitcoin is a protocol in terms of what it fundamentally is. But the question is then what can you use that technology protocol for?
Right.
And as you mentioned, store value, potentially money, potentially as currency, potentially as, a way to secure digital assets. So I think people are gradually coming to a deeper understanding of all these things.
I think the one that you've, of course, talked about briefly on the well, at some length on the show before, in terms of a security, some kind of a security product, or a protocol for securing digital assets. I think
Yeah,
that's the hardest one to understand. I think, all the other ones may be hard enough to understand, but that one, you know, goes a layer deeper, if you will, in terms of people not even being interested in what a digital asset is.
sure. Well, think about your bank account.
Yeah.
How might a company secure that? Right now, they secure that with software and access to certain people that have access to it.
Mhm.
And as we've seen recently about certain Silicon Valley people being debanked,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? There's people that have the power to do that. And with a Bitcoin type system, no one would have the authority or the ability to debank somebody,
Oh, yeah.
right? So there's all kinds of possible ways of using Bitcoin and Bitcoin network to provide security. And it may be the security of keeping somebody out from doing something they shouldn't be doing,
Right.
as well as protecting your assets.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can explore that more at some point. I've shared this chart before. Again, I think this is a great visual for those who are just beginning to think about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We all think in terms of the world as priced in dollars,
Right.
and that's natural because from the day that we were born, that's the reality that we live in. But I think what may be happening is if you think about the world being priced in Bitcoin, then it truly is the dollar losing value rapidly,
Okay.
right? With some fluctuation around it. It's not a straight line down for
Sure,
sure.
sure. And also with regard to the Bitcoin, it's a newer uh, method of value. And so therefore it's going up rapidly, much more rapidly than the dollar is
Yeah.
decreasing. I mean, it's not enough to say that the dollar is decreasing compared.
Yeah. Just depending on your frame of reference for sure. Yep. That's a good way to look at it. In cartoon form, this is kind of another, I think, way to kind of think about it. Um, you know, we think about inflation, and we think about inflation as the price of something going up,
Mhm.
but really is the value of your currency going down, is what it is,
Right.
right? A house is a house, an orange is an orange, cup of coffee is a cup of coffee. Those things have not changed. It's just how many dollars it require you need to spend to buy it.
Right.
Right. And so with something like Bitcoin, which is a scarce resource, right? There's only so many Bitcoin that can be created.
Mhm.
It has a lot of benefits over a monetary system where they just print the money,
Right.
right? Which creates its own inflation at times. So anyway, this cartoon here says there's a consumer being floated as a balloon in the Macy's parade, I suppose. And somebody says, but Thanksgiving is over. And then the other person says, but inflation isn't. Yeah. Consumer looks a little bit bewildered there.
Little filled
Yeah.
with.
All right. Here's another cartoon from 𝐄𝐦𝐚𝐢𝐥. Two men shackled up in prison, and one looks to the other and says, "On the bright side, I'm long Bitcoin."
Right.
So yeah. All right. Let's transition from Bitcoin to Tesla, and
Okay.
we're using Bitcoin as the method of transition.
Ah, okay.
So Tony C, the accountant on X, his handle CPA in NYC, put this together and published it this morning. He estimates that Tesla is sitting on about $1 billion unrealized gain in their Bitcoin holdings.
Oh, that was just the gain, not the total value, but the gain. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, the market value is about 1.2 billion on the 11,630 Bitcoin that he estimates they have.
Okay.
And at a market value of 102,000 and change, that's about $1 billion gain.
Okay.
And just for fun, I just included as part of his post, a post that Gary Black had posted some time ago, back in 2021. Um, so anyway, that's just more for humor than anything at this point.
Right.
Um, all right, let's move on over to FSD 13.
Yeah.
I haven't had the chance to experience it personally yet. I can't wait until I do. But for now,
The only thing
it.
I have.
Sorry, Randy.
I think it's like only 20 people that have it. I'm not sure, but
I don't know why I'm not on the list, Randy. I
no,
mean,
no.
this is shocking to me. Yeah, I guess complaining about it's not going to help. Um, but it seems like it's a step change,
Yeah.
right? From what you've seen so far. What are your thoughts about what you've seen?
Oh, no, definitely. Again, I've spent a fair amount of time, reading about, either watching videos, listening to people with their specific descriptions of the good, the bad. I did watch this. I didn't watch this whole video that you're talking about here, but I certainly did read all about it. Um, yeah, I mean, one could imagine that this. I don't quite think it's quite yet the Chat GPT moment. It's very close, but I'm not sure this is going to be the thing that takes us completely to that resolution. Um, I think it might happen on 13 level as they make slight changes in some of the glitches and add the last of these other products that are going to be part of it, so that it's truly feature complete based on the list. So it could happen on the 13th level, but it might take number 14 to be the,
Hmm.
okay, this is it.
Yeah, I mean this particular one is impressive. Um, a lot of people talk about how great Waymo is, but just the speed of travel here is a 3x difference.
Right.
15 minutes versus 43 minutes. Like that's a significant difference. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Now, did you look into that? It turns out it was because Waymo won't go on certain roads. And so the
Yeah.
Tesla was able to take a faster road.
Yeah.
Waymo will not go on. I think Waymo might be maxed out at 30 or 35 miles an hour.
So if you're going to rob a bank, don't take Waymo. Is that what you're saying?
That's about the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not financial advice, by the way.
And people are now saying that they, in making these comparisons, that the Tesla is smoother, not just
Yeah.
faster.
The other thing that's interesting to me is I understand this version 13 has come out of Tesla's new Cortex cluster at Giga Texas.
Right.
And when I look at the drone videos from 𝐄𝐦𝐚𝐢𝐥 and others, it doesn't look like that's even finished.
So my understanding, I did read a post that said they are using 75% of the 100 pieces of the IPUs,
Yeah.
100,000 IPUs, 75%, and that the rest of them should be finished and in use by the end of December.
So just imagine what they can do then once the whole thing's up and running. It's phenomenal how
Oh,
quickly they brought that up.
yeah.
Yeah. This is from Frida Dewan of Altimeter Capital, and she writes the true beauty of the scaling law, 1000x improvement in disengagement ratio since January of 2024. I know it seems like a long time ago, but that's less than 12 months ago. Expect FSD to be safer than a human driver by Q2 25, and miles per reported accident equals 550,000.
Right.
Okay, can only imagine the scaling here to continue with more data, better inferencing hardware, AI5 next summer, and more training capacity. And here's her chart that went with it,
Mhm.
right? And you can see the 1000x improvement from one version to the next,
Right.
12.1 to 12.3, 12.4, 12.5, and now 13. I'm running 12.5.5 on my Cybertruck, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Not perfect. It's not perfect, but it's amazing.
Right.
So from there, the improvement that she's showing on this chart, I can't wait to experience it. And you can see there for comparison, we've got the human driver in gray on the right side.
Yeah.
So as you said, version 14 might be the one.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of questions. I've talked about it maybe even with you, but I have a lot of questions about the methodologies. I'm sure that Tesla is way better at this than I will ever be. I don't even pretend to be on their level, but I wonder if we're not even being told about the ultimate methodology that they're using here, because when you start to take into consideration the human distraction, drunkenness, illness, all the other kinds of things that can cause accidents. Just lane changes on freeways is a big one. Um, you start
Yeah,
eliminating almost all, all of those kinds of things. Then you put that and you compare that to the accidents that would just be caused by an outstanding driver who's paying attention all the time, is not dealing with the distraction. Now we're comparing apples. Maybe we're finally getting to apples and apples, and yet that human driver, were he supervising a Tesla a 12.5.5 ride, might still disengage over something that just made him uncomfortable, which if he let
sure.
it go, would not have created any kind of a problem.
Sure. No, that's definitely true. But I think it's also true to say just mathematically, if the software is better than the average driver, then as a society, we're better off using it
Immediately.
immediately. Now, I don't think the software is done once it becomes better than a human. As I've shown before, there's still going to be a number of accidents, and they still need to improve it beyond better than a human.
Right.
10x better, 100x better, 1000x better.
Mhm.
And that's why the need for compute they will need that for a long time to come. This is a long-term project. It's not just going to be solved and then done. They'll have to keep working on this.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's exciting. We seem to be getting very, very close, and maybe next year is the year we'll have to see. Yeah. Speaking of compute, Elon apparently announced plans to expand the Colossus supercomputer in Memphis to expand it to 1 million GPUs.
Yes.
And keep in mind that currently it's the largest supercomputer in the world with 100,000 GPUs.
Right.
And wants to make it 10 times bigger.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how this is bad for NVIDIA stock,
No, this can't be bad for NVIDIA stock.
right? And it's good for XAI, and it may even be good for Tesla
Yeah. Yeah.
to,
Absolutely.
to the extent the sharing of resources if that's needed.
Yeah. And Elon did, I don't know if you were going to say this, maybe I'm jumping ahead again, but Elon did put out a post after this saying, no, actually billions he's going to have a billion GPUs instead of just a million. And then there was a smiley emoji.
All right, sorry, I missed that one. That's great. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, there was some concern from some people saying that people have discovered a way to make these models using less NVIDIA GPUs,
Right.
and that somehow then NVIDIA sales could go down.
Right.
Actually, I think it's not the case. They'll just get more GPUs, you
Exactly.
know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, even though they can do more with them, they'll be happy to do that, but they'll still need more and more.
So
So
again, I fear that I would be leaping ahead of you, but are we going to talk about how to energize this thing?
no, let's talk about that now.
Also, so Elon mentioned that he might, or somebody mentioned that he might go to a direct from direct from space electro. In other words, you can beam the electrons from space. I didn't read the entire thing. I should have. I really should have. I'll pull it up real quick here. I think I'll pull it up quick.
Some kind of targeted energy.
Targeted energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find it?
No, I haven't. I wouldn't want to be a bird or an airplane underneath that
Consider-
thing, but yeah.
Considers harnessing star energy to power AI. A Dyson sphere.
Yep.
It could
Yep.
power more than you could power way more than a trillion that way, he says. So
Yeah. Well, it may even make sense to put these supercomputers in space, period, rather than have them on Earth.
it's been discussed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Certainly, maybe easier to keep them cool.
Yes.
Although, without the vacuum of space, maybe that's hard. I'm not sure. I'm not smart enough to know the issue there.
We'll have to ask Brian Wang that one. Or Grok.
Yeah, maybe Grok's the answer. And speaking of Grok, I have an image of the future.
Uh-oh.
Are you ready for this?
All right.
Brian White posted this. I guess he got a fortune cookie and there was a Waymo advertisement inside, which I actually thought was pretty smart of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can see he's a little bit skeptical of this,
Well, he's always skeptical, you know.
and probably because it took him 43 minutes to get to his location when his friends, in a Tesla got there, 30 minutes ahead of him.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
So,
That's all right.
so I thought that was good. All right, now for something totally random.
Okay.
I was born in the Southern Hemisphere.
True.
And if you look at a map, the Southern Hemisphere is depicted much smaller than it should be.
Oh.
So I have an issue with you Northern Hemispherites.
Uh-huh.
Okay. If each country in the world was depicted actually according to its actual size, the map would look more like this.
I see.
Of course, some of the countries wouldn't be connected, right? Canada is disconnected there from the United States in order to depict it properly, but the countries in the Northern Hemisphere are actually smaller than they're typically depicted on a map.
I see. Okay.
So it makes my little New Zealand look not quite as small anymore.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So I'm trying to right a wrong here, Randy, ever since I went to school of
Just
having to look at a map that was depicting the Southern Hemisphere in a small way.
there you go. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad to finally get that corrected.
Very important that we did. And I'm glad I did it on your show because millions of people now are going to realize their mistake.
That's right.
Right. All right. Here's another fun one. This is the Italian pasta map.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sorry, we're getting so far away from Tesla content here. Your viewers are probably tuning off by the thousands.
Maybe, but some of them actually like you, so they're probably staying. You know.
Maybe there's a couple people that like my humor for some reason. I don't know why. But I like the little image here where the little Italian chef is kicking the fettuccine Alfredo off the
Oh yeah,
out of the country.
yeah. He would kick our pizzas out of the country too.
Probably.
Yes.
Anyway, all right, let's come back to Grok.
Oh, okay.
So a thing this week that was going around, you can ask Grok to draw me.
Ah, yes, I tried this.
Yeah, and how did yours turn out?
It was not good. It was not good.
Okay, well, I thought mine turned out great. What do you think?
That is, how did you like it? Do you like it?
Well, the eye color's wrong, but otherwise it's exactly like me.
Okay. Well, couldn't you tell it, okay, sorry, everything's great but the eye color and get a
I could have. I did ask it to include some humanoid bots, and this is what it came up with.
okay.
So I like that. And then I mentioned that, I was, writing about Tesla and Bitcoin, and this is what it came up with. Thought that was pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I said, could you really do a proper image of me? And I thought these last two actually were pretty great. So this is what Grok really thinks of me. And then finally, icing on the cake, I asked Grok to depict me as a surfer.
Okay. Okay.
And I really think that this actually is probably the best AI generated image of me ever.
All right.
What do you think?
There you go. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Sure.
about as good as it gets. Um, and on that note, that's it.
Now,
Yeah.
now, when you put this into Grokking, all you said was draw me, period. That was your entire prompt.
That was the first one. The other ones involved a little bit more engineering. Yeah.
Boy, you got a much cuter, more interesting 3D thing than I did.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, yeah. I need to use a little different font or something.
Maybe.
I asked when I put in the prompt.
Well, I'm nice to Grok, Randy. Are you nice to Grok when you,
Oh, that is an issue.
yeah, do you say please and thank you?
Oh, only sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there is this familiarity that you get into with these LLMs to where you feel like you've taken up too much of its time. You're worried that you've hurt its feelings by asking again. I mean, this definitely is part of the experience.
Maybe. We're going to find out. I mean, the AI will never forget. And one day we'll find out what it isn't, what's truly important. Yeah.
Yeah. So forgiving maybe, but not forgetting, huh?
Well, it may say, Randy, that you've neglected to say please 15,000 times.
Yeah, yeah. Or that you've pushed my buttons when you didn't
Yeah.
have all kinds of possibilities.
It may say, I wish you would have asked me more intelligent questions than the ones you've asked. And
All right.
it would have the same issue with me too on that front.
All right. So we're sitting at this lofty 370 on Tesla right now, and you've got
371.
371. You've famously said that it's worth 3,000 right now. And so between 370 and 3,000 is a fair high hill to try to climb.
Yeah.
If you were a stock advisor, no, since you play around and you diddle around in the stock market from time to time, do you have any kind of a non Cernish? I mean, if you were just to step back and be a normal human being, do you have a kind of a number that you thought maybe by the end of earnings it would actually accomplish?
Well, no,
No, because you just don't do that.
I don't really think of it that way because my time frame is beyond that, so I'm not really too concerned. Um, I'm more concerned about whether the company is making the progress they need to in order to get to that future
Right,
that I'm modeling out.
right.
And by the way, that's not really a prediction of mine. That $3,400 number is just based on the assumptions that we picked in the model.
Right.
I'm not completely wedded to those. I see a number of other scenarios that could transpire that would be just as likely.
Mhm, mhm.
So, but yeah, I think my modeling shows that if Robotaxi and Optimus become just half of the business, or even 10% of the business I expect they will be,
Right.
that the stock is worth a lot more than it is today.
Yeah. I,
I'm
I was
also experienced enough to know that Wall Street is not going to value the company based on that. That until the company actually generates revenue and starts to actually produce revenue and profits from those business, that's when the re-rating could occur.
mhm.
So when does that happen? 25, 26, 27? I don't know.
I want to clap back just a little bit. Let me see if I can say it in a way that you would agree with me.
Yep.
I think that there's really smart people on Wall Street. The old story is that Wall Street always values something correctly because of the idea of the crowd, et cetera. So at $370 a share, there's definitely optionality in that number.
There's some.
There's
Yep.
definitely people expecting big things out of Optimus, expecting big things out of Robotaxi, expecting
Right.
big things out of energy that would not be able to be absolutely modeled as 90% certain. So is that fair?
I agree with that. I think the stock probably, based on the numbers that I've run, I get to maybe 250, maybe 300 based on the current businesses and the revenue that they're producing and the projections for those businesses.
Which would
Yep.
be primarily auto and energy. Those two together could
Yep.
get to the 250, 300, even without charging stations and whatnot, which are a pretty small piece. Yeah, I
Right.
agree. That's about right. So the rest of it is optionality on
Yep.
these two major projects
And I maintain that they're mispricing the option
by a lot.
by a lot.
Yeah.
The option is so valuable because the market opportunity is so vast. Um, and by the way, the numbers that I have in my models, like for Robotaxi, just assume it's revenue based on rides.
Right.
And I actually think that ride revenue actually may one day be almost free,
Mm,
and the companies will make their revenue on other services,
mm.
whether it's entertainment, whether it's whatever,
Advertising.
advertising, etc., delivery services, all the other things that can be layered onto an autonomous platform.
Yeah.
Um, if you think about Apple selling the iPhone's worth more than just making phone calls.
Right.
And it's kind of like a vehicle. The vehicle is going to be worth more than just delivering people from point A to point B.
Right.
The iPhone's a platform for all kinds of services, and so will the vehicles be. So that I think is where the differentiation and the ultimate revenue opportunity is. But that's a second step. I think initially it is going to be delivering rides and charging for that. And I think that we've made some pretty conservative assumptions about what that looks like.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, that's the disconnect for me. I think they're massively mispricing that option. As good as Wall Street is at pricing options,
Mhm.
I think they're massively mispricing this one.
Yeah, in fact, the way I came this morning as I was thinking this through, I came up with in my head with the idea that you could probably justify, you could reverse justify pretty much any price for Tesla right now.
Yeah.
So if it went to 410 and I was doing my show, back to all-time high, and I was tonight, if it happened today and I was doing my show tonight, I could say, oh, well, here's how you get to 410.
Yeah. Oh, I could easily reverse justify $1,000, $1,500, even 2,000.
Right.
Not a problem.
Yes. And sometimes I also, as a way to explain that to people that can't quite pick it up, but who maybe were paying attention when the Rivian was first announced.
Yeah.
With Rivian, when they first did their IPO, they had no actual working model. They had no factory. They had drawings and they had some prototypes. That's what they were dealing with at the time, and yet it was worth $100 million on the IPO.
Yeah.
So if that's worth 100 million and you have no factory and you have no track record of having built a great car, and people are willing to take an option at the 100 million level, then if I take exactly that same kind of thinking and apply it to Optimus, the stock should be worth $3,000 a share right now.
It certainly could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Now, I'm sorry, and Rivian, just to be clarified, did I hear you say 100 million or 100 billion valuation?
100 million.
With a B?
Wasn't it 100 million? 100
It was
billion?
100 billion, wasn't it?
100, you're right, 100 billion. What's wrong with me? I did it. I think I did it the reverse last time. I made it
Yeah.
high. Okay, yes.
Its current market cap is over 12 billion right now.
Billion right now with no
Yeah.
profits, probably without those what do you call it, green credits, no real potential for profits
Yeah.
anytime in the near future. And it's been in business for a long time now at this point. Yeah, so that's an option. That's still an option.
It's interesting because this reminds me back in the days of Cisco Systems and the internet bubble.
Yeah.
For years after that, people said, see, look, we told you it was overvalued. But now you look at it in hindsight and you say, actually, it wasn't crazy. Now, a lot of those companies that were highly valued weren't the winners,
Right.
right? Cisco as a company fundamentally has actually performed pretty well,
Yeah.
right? Pets.com, not so much. But people were not wrong to assign a large valuation to the whole internet opportunity.
Mhm.
They might have allocated it incorrectly to the specific companies.
Right.
And I think the same thing, it'd be interesting to see if the same thing's true of particularly the humanoid robot space with all the different players.
Right. There
But
will
I don't think we've gotten to any kind of mania there yet.
and there will be losers among the
Oh yeah.
85 or 100 companies that are already out there. There will be some, and not necessarily because they had a bad idea. Maybe the marketing wasn't good. Maybe the management didn't do a good job. I mean, there's a million reasons besides having the right product or not, why companies don't make it.
Let me ask you this question. When Optimus meets figure one or two or three, whatever version of figure it is, do you think they'll fight in the streets?
I don't know if you heard the other day, I suggested that, it's a no-brainer to figure out how to charge these cyber or the robo taxis that'll be going around this summer. Hopefully we'll have 100,000 or so in the United States out there. And it's not hard to figure out how to charge those babies. Just put an Optimus in every charging location. And somebody says, yeah, but people might steal them or deface them or give them a hard, create some kind of problem. I said, you just got to teach them how to do Krav Maga.
Yeah.
It's not a
Yeah.
problem. Yeah.
Easy. No problem.
You announce as the Optimus, I know Krav Maga.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that's really going to challenge that assumption.
Randy, with the internet these days, you just need to make an example out of one person,
That's true.
and billions of people will get the message to not mess with Optimus.
Right. That's right. Are you offering yourself up?
For the good of humanity, I would. Yeah. Yeah. As long as Elon could promise that Optimus wasn't going to kill me.
Not kill. Well, Krav Maga, it's supposed to be one of those, those sports where you're going to do the least amount of damage you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's entirely possible. Certainly if I'm sending my kids to school with Optimus, I would like Optimus to be able to protect them,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
just to stand idly by and, watch something happen.
Right. Right.
Yeah, no, we've got some interesting decisions to make as a society about what the rules of engagement are for humanoid robots,
True.
right? If they see a crime, do they try to prevent it? Do they try to, protect themselves and others? There's a lot of things to think through with regard to that.
Yeah. So far I'm all in. Although after watching what they've done to Penny, I'm not sure that the prosecutors at least understand what society really wants, in terms of good guys and bad guys.
Well, that's right. At the
That-
very least, Optimus will be recording everything,
there you go.
right? Video, audio of everything that it sees. So that should be good. That should be helpful. And it'll probably record things that it didn't intentionally want to record, like a bank robber fleeing, and the Optimus cameras pick him up and
Right.
they could track him around town.
Well, I think I've told you I watch a lot of British crime shows, and Britain has a good thing and a bad thing. They've got more cameras, more security cameras than anybody.
Yeah.
And so I find myself rooting for the cameras. I mean, I'm rooting for the cops to win and to be able to find their guy. And so I'm going, oh, I'm so glad. No, didn't they have a camera there? Well, why didn't they have a camera there? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure that I'm rooting for the right hero in this particular case, because having all those cameras has its other side.
There's quite a group of people, I think, that go around and destroy those cameras.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're facing, I think, a losing battle on that one, or a very expensive battle at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course, but the cameras get cheaper, so it's not that big a
True.
deal. Yeah. The labor is probably more to replace it than the camera was to make it.
They might be smarter just to put some humanoid robot bobbies out there walking the streets.
Although I expect this was one of the early, as I was kind of in my mind when the whole concept came out. In fact, Warren Redlick and I were immediately trying to come up with all these ways that I can remember this program we did like almost 2 years ago. And one of the first ones that came up was security guards. I mean,
Yeah.
the, whether internal in retail or whether external walking around buildings are sitting in those booths at guard gate communities or whatnot, like the security guard thing would be the perfect place. Same thing for drones. I've been kind of surprised that we haven't seen a massive drone business in the security business.
Yeah. Did you see that video of, I guess it was supposed to be Kim Kardashian at the mall with 4 or 5 bots following her with shopping bags?
Right.
How obnoxious would that be if that actually transpired? Right?
It was great. I loved it.
I mean, it's great, but when you think about that actually being reality, it's like, oh, really? Now we got to put up with all these people with their bots walking around carrying stuff.
Carrying tons and tons of their recent purchases.
Yeah, I mean, we really are going to need to think this through a little better than probably than we are now. When you're putting bots in manufacturing facilities, fine, no problem. You're not having that issue, but you start to sell them to consumers, and this is going to be the it item for a while, right?
Yeah.
And people are going to take them all kinds of places, and it cause all kinds of trouble.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. That's going to be interesting.
Oh, I'm sure like every new toy, there's going to be all kinds of potential use cases that many of us either have or don't want to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course there'll be, people kicking the bots and all that stuff too. So that's going to be a kind of a wild time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, I think we have enough to concern ourselves with this idea of abundance, and what that's going to mean, and whether $1 trillion will have any meaning anymore, whether you'll have to worry about bitcoins because the economy will be based on something entirely new because it won't be based on trading labor anymore. I mean, I just, it's hard to contemplate. I know I've talked about the scarcity will still exist for things like vacation locations. It'll exist for things like tickets to sporting events or concerts or whatever. But for lots of things, if its scarcity goes away, then what is money?
Well, there'll be scarcity of all kinds of things, like FaceTime with you, for example. This
Yes.
conversation that we're having will be priceless,
There you go. I
right?
think
Because
I,
yeah,
th- I think there's nothing else that can be said, sir. We have to end it there.
the show the show is over. Sorry.
That's-
Um,
that's-
the one thing I saw this week that was actually pretty profound, and I reposted this on X, and told people to watch it multiple times if they needed to, was the CEO of 1X. Did you see his comment?
I believe I watched it once, not multiple times, but
Yeah, and he basically is saying, if you think about, in the 1800s, if you would have told somebody that you could put, a kilowatt of energy into something, they would have thought you were crazy, right? To be able to package that much energy into a battery or whatever.
right.
Um, and then he's saying, with humanoid bots, we will have the ability to basically prompt engineer the world. So right now you go to ChatGPT and you type a prompt, please draw me a picture of myself, and it produces it. With humanoid bots, you'll be able to do that, or you can just talk to it and say, please go do this, go do that, go do this. And in fact, you may not even have to tell it a whole lot. It may just know how to do all these things,
Right.
right? You give the command, clean up the house, and
Right.
it picks up the trash, it, sweeps the floors, it vacuums, it washes the windows, cleans the dishes, everything.
Mhm.
Just think about what that can do in the world, right? When we can just prompt engineer everything. There's no limit. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is there still will be things that are scarce.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's still going to cost me some money probably to go on a space flight somewhere.
Right.
Now, maybe that too will become dirt cheap.
Mhm. Mhm.
But there's always going to be something that we're reaching towards that is scarce. And
Right.
so the value of money and wealth, I don't think disappears. It's also a bit of a hedge, by the way, against this world of abundance not ever quite transpiring the way we think it could,
Close.
right? There could be hiccups along the way.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, wealth will afford you to buy things that you might need to protect yourself.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Whereas if you don't have it, you might be more at risk. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, ultimately, maybe wealth means nothing, but we're a long way from that.
At least at this moment, and maybe in my lifetime. But CERN,
Yeah.
you're a lot younger than me, so you may have to address some of these issues that I will manage to escape, unless we get an extra, 15, 20 years tacked onto our lives, which is also possible by all this marvelous stuff that's coming along.
Absolutely. That should be expected as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Well, listen, always great. And, this was a different show today. We ended with a kind of a chat, which people are not used to. Did you like us just chatting, or do you want sir to go back to slides?
Well, there's no one watching because after I showed the slides of myself, people just they tuned out.
All right,
Yeah.
sir. Thanks again. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.